Right, I'm sitting here with Donna Phillips.
Donna Pokere Phillips.
Good thing you had it on your sign. Normally before these, I sit there and mentally rehearse the name.
That's
Suddenly
all right.
realise it's the one thing I hadn't done.
That's all right. That's all right.
Right, now, you're standing in Hamilton East for the 2021 by-election.
Yes, I am.
Which we've got 24 candidates for.
Yeah, that's right. It's quite
so it'll
exciting.
be an interesting lolly scramble.
That's right.
Now, because, as I've mentioned before in my other videos, by-elections are a different beastie than ordinary elections because you're voting for one person. So we're not trying to work out a balanced council or anything like that. So I've decided I was going to look predominantly at what candidates, and I'm not interviewing all the candidates, admittedly, but what the candidates I do interview, what their views on cycling and cycling infrastructure, both what cycling groups like Bike Waikato and a few other groups want, also what the council have already done, what they're planning on doing, and what they potentially could be doing in the future but haven't brought up and told us about yet, because I'm pretty sure they've got plans for cycling that we don't know about yet. I know, for instance, they want to join up the schools in Hamilton East.
Yes.
They want to have effectively a cycling version of a highway like we've got down by the railway line and what we've got with the river.
Yes.
They want something like that, mainly because it just makes it safer and better for cycling.
And for our kids.
Yeah, and if it's done right, effectively, like I use the one going along the railway line, anytime I go into Hamilton, into Frankton, Hamilton West area, I will travel down that and then peel off at the various places I need to, so that I spend less time actually on the road, but I'm still not having to go miles out of my way.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I've been cycling, as people who are watching these probably realise, I've been cycling all my life. What are your views on what council can do to do with cycling and bringing communities closer together, because it's a known fact that cycling does bring communities together a lot more.
Yeah. So for me, what I'd like to see, and we missed out in putting in a submission when they were revamping our park, but we wanted walking and cycling lanes around our particular park that's connected to a gully. So it's connecting the gullies with the parks, with the community. And I think it's a key, like all my mokopuna, they all have a bike each, and they cycle around the parks because it's safer.
Yeah.
And parents feel that it's safe. So I think connecting the cycleways, not only with our beautiful Waikato River, and you look at the gardens and connecting to the important parts of our community, you're absolutely right. It connects and engages the community. For me, it's about safety.
Yeah.
First and foremost, because I'm not a cyclist myself, as you can see, but my mokopuna love cycling, and they'll cycle to a park, they'll cycle through a gullieway, and so making those connections, I think, is very important.
Yeah, and like I've mentioned this before, that I'm comfortable cycling in anything, even the expressway and things like this, trucks whizzing past me doesn't worry me in the slightest. But then I've been cycling for so long, I have a particular approach to cycling that is very cautious while not being afraid. I make sure that I don't move until someone knows what I'm doing, all this sort of thing. But kids in particular, also people who are looking to get back into cycling, who haven't done it probably since they were at school, aren't quite so confident. And that's where the safety issue becomes a big thing.
Absolutely.
Because they don't have the confidence to ride down a busy road like me.
Well, I certainly don't have the confidence, and I would not, seriously go on to a main road. My husband has been a transport operator for 40 plus years.
Oh, okay.
And he's consciously aware of cyclists, not just cyclists, but motorbikes as well. And I think we all need to be conscious of motorbikes and cyclists. However, we're not always, they tend to be on our blind side. And so because my husband's been involved in the transport industry, I am aware of the issue around safety, and I am aware around the issue around safety for our mokopuna. If I felt safe as a nanny, I might be tempted to get on the road with my mokopuna. But what we tend to do with our mokopuna is we keep them on the footpath and we keep them close to the parks and we find the safest route for them. So I absolutely support more cycleways. And one, it's looking after our environment. Two, it's looking after our health. Three, it engages the whole whānau. Because when they go out now, I just say, I've even got a bike at home that I need to dust off. Might need a bit larger seat now, but anyway. But you know what I'm saying? It engages the whānau. So I think it's an excellent project.
And I find going out riding with a few people, especially in situations where you can ride side by side without annoying traffic, and ride as a group, because I've been on a few group rides, they're actually quite pleasant and entertaining. I've met people I never would have met any other way, had some interesting discussions. I've even discovered photography projects to do later on
because
through people I've talked to.
Well, you know what I find interesting as a non-biker in a car, that you'll get a cyclist will come past you and they tend to beat you in town, especially to your destination. So it's, if you think a car's faster, think again, because I've seen many a cyclist overtake me and reach the destination before me.
The first interview I did in this series for the by-election, the first person I interviewed, I arranged to meet at a cafe to do the interview like I normally would. And she apologised for being a bit late because she spent 15 or 20 minutes or something or other finding a parking spot. And I said, it only took me about 30 seconds. There's my bike over there.
And isn't that funny, eh? The irony.
Yeah, and I do find there are times when there's areas where there's lines of traffic.
Yes.
Right? And because there's a cycle lane, I can get right to the front of the queue, and while the person at the back is going to go through 2 or 3 light changes, I'm through the intersection. Friends of mine will no longer do bets with me as to who can get to a cafe from my place fastest.
I love
because they've discovered that that's a dumb idea, because normally I'm picking times when there is traffic jams, and they're going to get held up and I'm not. So it's
the advantages of having a bike farm.
And I think it will. And again, this comes back to, it's not telling people they should ride bikes. It's giving those that actually want to do it the option and the freedom and to feel safe to take that choice to do it.
Well, it's encouraging.
Yeah.
It's encouraging a healthier lifestyle. I mean, we need our cars when we travel out. Do we necessarily need our cars when we're travelling around Hamilton, Kirikiriroa, and also utilising the bus service as well?
Yeah.
Public transport.
The other thing is better lighting. Like, we're pretty good in Hamilton in most places, but with good lighting in the streets, you also feel safer for walking. Right?
Yeah.
So it comes back to that getting out and doing things because it's safer, and not having to go, well, I'd feel safer in my car because I can lock the doors. If you've got a safer community, better lighting, better facilities on the road for alternative transports, a good bus system, we can reduce the traffic congestion on the road.
I tell you what, I have considered investing in, as you know, and I made a serious commitment to myself. It's one of those e-bikes.
Oh yeah.
Have you got one of those?
Yeah, that's what I ride around.
Oh, great!
Oh, brilliant.
So I am thinking along those lines.
Because you can use it like a normal bike, and I keep the settings down really low most of the time. But if I've been out going for a decent ride somewhere or whatever, because I've got a little trailer that I tow around, so occasionally I did one to Parongia a while back. I threw all my camera gear into the trailer and rode to Parongia. I didn't quite expect the number of trucks that were on the road, but still they were pretty reasonable. I wouldn't necessarily say I'd rush to do that particular route again.
It is busy.
Yeah. But when I do long rides like that, knowing that I can adjust the settings on the e-bike for the return trip if I'm feeling a little bit knackered, or my legs are a bit sore, tired or something like that, is actually quite good.
Yeah.
You know? And there have been times when I've needed to whip out to Te Rapa Strait somewhere very quickly, and I will put the settings right up quite high, and I'll be going down Te Rapa Strait at about 40-45 k's an hour on my bike.
That's right. So I think
overtaking cars stuck in traffic jams.
Well, I know a couple of friends that do have e-bikes and they love them.
Yeah.
And they actually reckon they can get to work faster than on a car. So I think there needs to be more initiatives at a council level and at a government level for people to invest in those types. So our park has just been revamped, and they took away all the swings, the slides, the gym that the children play on. They took them all away, and they built 2 swings. Just a pole with 2 swings on it. And but what they did is they revamped the basketball and the netball. But now all the babies have nothing to play on. So here's the thing, and this is what I want to point out, that our council and our staff need to get out to the community. Not once did they come around, because there's several streets that run onto our park. Yeah. Not once did they come around to those communities and ask us what we wanted in the park. And there are lots of babies and lots of toddlers and lots of young ones that utilise the swings and the...
That would be a good thing to do, would be to have, every now and again, have a day in a park at different parks where councillors actually come out and spend a day in the park, and there's people there and food stalls, and they get to actually physically see what there is or is not in that park.
I just couldn't get over how they remove what the kids play on a daily basis, and the reason why families go to our park, and they removed that. And so now basketball and netball, my muckles do go and they bounce the ball around. They're babies under the age of 5, but they get bored going on to rates. So we have already know that there's going to be an 8.9% rate increase. And I just say, look, just be honest, council, just be honest. It's actually not 8.9%, it's actually 17.8%. And that's a huge rates increase. Yeah. Now, did you know that? Most people didn't know that.
I didn't know the exact number, but I knew it was pretty high.
Yeah, no one knew that in Hamilton, not even the other candidates. So if they start quoting that number, then they've quoted it from me, because I'm the one that's done the research. So there's 8.9% for the general rates increase, 4.5% for the 3 waters, and that's the compliance aspect of it, and 4.4% for another general rates increase over the next 2 years. Now, for me, if the council come out and said, we're going to have a 17.8% rates increase, how would you feel about that?
Well, I wouldn't be impressed, because I don't see that we're getting added benefit for that, right? And you're talking about the fact that you're pulling rates from people who their incomes haven't gone up.
No,
right?
That's right. Are you all right with that?
You're right. Their incomes haven't gone up or anything like that.
So we're on fixed incomes.
But the rates are going up, right? And even people who have had pay rises in the last 12 months, the lucky ones, their pay rises haven't been that level to keep pace with the rates. Now, you can understand rates going up if you can see that there is a direct benefit. But I sort of wonder, what about some of the roads that need repairs? We're needing water infrastructure pipes in the ground need to be replaced over the next few years.
So
some of them are ancient.
Well, here's the issue for me. Council do decide on fixing potholes down certain driveways, and so there's an equity issue. I pay the same rates as everybody else. Why is it that certain people's driveways get chosen to be upgraded and other driveways don't? And they say, well, council shouldn't be paying for private driveways. Well, what the public doesn't know is that they actually do. So again, it's like, well, who makes that decision? Yes, you've got the politicians at this level, but you've got the bureaucrats at this level as well. And so money's getting spent at this level, but money's also getting spent and the decisions made at this level. And I feel that sometimes there's a disconnect. So you've got your elected politicians and you've got your career politicians. Not always do the two connect. The other thing I have an issue with is that, we talk about high rates. Well, when you have your CEO on $440,000 per annum, and they do a normal 9 to 5 like any other professional, our Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, is on $470,000. Now, we know she works long hours. We know she works 7 days a week. Probably if there's anyone that deserves that type of income, which I still think is high because it's public service, right? I believe that we need to actually visit the salaries because it's about entitlement and enrichment of a certain community that are being paid by ratepayers and taxpayers.
Yeah.
We want to reduce our rates, then we're going to have a serious conversation about salaries.
Yeah, especially when at the other end of it, the people who actually fix the potholes and sweep the streets aren't getting massive increases.
No.
They don't get a guaranteed increase. So, the CEO gets almost guaranteed increase every year.
Yeah.
Whereas the actual workers on the ground don't get the same guarantee of an increase.
So again, there's a gap between the CEO's salary of $430,000 and then the labourer that works within council. I mean, do councils go by the living wage? I mean, do they pay by the living wage? Are councils out there, or are they paying by the minimum wage? So there's a huge gap. And again, the question is that person in that role because they want to do a service to our community, because it's the community that pays for them, or are they there as a career politician? Because bureaucrats are politicians as well. Just need to be clear about that. I've been both. I'm a politician that's trying to get elected, and I've also been a bureaucrat. So I understand the two, the difference between the two.
The interesting thing with the CEO is the fact that he's being paid a salary that's on par with working for any major corporation.
Well,
right?
that's the argument.
Yeah, but the trouble with that is the fact that working as a CEO for a council is completely different than working for a CEO for a private company.
So when you're working for as a public servant, you're not working for a private organisation that put their salaries up there and they say, well, we've got to be on par. Well, no, you don't, actually. Yeah. Why don't those, and we'll see a difference in people coming through. I dare us to actually say to our CEO, you go on the living wage and see how many people put their hand up for that particular role. Hey, you go on the living wage. Or we say to the Prime Minister, you go on the living wage and you can still get your perks. So, they do get their perks, but we will see a whole different contest of people putting their name forward. Because you'll have people putting their name forward who actually want to be there to actually contribute back to their communities rather than making a career and being entitled and enriched by that process. So I have a major issue. If we're serious about bringing the rates down, let's be serious about salaries.
A lot of ageing pipes in the ground at the moment in different parts of the city. And one of the biggest questions has always been, if you're going to put high-rise buildings in the centre of Hamilton, you need to change the pipe, because a skinny little pipe like that is not going to service a whole bunch of units or apartments that need a pipe like this. So it comes down to some of those old pipes are going to be under a lot of stress.
And that's the issue that I have with councils as well, because you're only in a crisis because you haven't maintained.
Yeah.
So the reason why we have a crisis is because the councils who had taken rates for infrastructure actually haven't done their job. So good on the government. I always give credit where credit is due. Good on the government for taking on this big issue. So the Three Waters is about, those that don't know, is about our wastewater, stormwater and drinking water. And it came about because of what happened in 2016 in Havelock North. And the poisons or the bacteria that got into the waterways that poisoned or made over 5,000 people sick, and 3 people died from it. So there was an urgent need, an investigation done, and an urgent need to sort it out. Here's the issue, and I don't know if you're aware, but because I have a legal background and I've worked in with council and in council in the past, my background is local government. I realised going through the new water service bill is that government has delegated the compliance side of those waters to council.
Okay.
And that's where they say that the community still owns the water. And there's a debate around that as well, because even though council, on behalf of the government, that 4.5% rate increase that I talked about, that's about compliance. So from a legal perspective, you can't be acting or enforcing compliance and then turn around and say to me and you as the community that we're liable if something goes wrong. You can't have it both ways, and that's what the service bill is saying, that if you're the end provider or the end water provider and somehow a bacteria, poison or toxin got into your waterway, then you as a marae or you as a church or you as a school, that was that last point that gave the water out, is now liable for that bacteria or that pollutant getting into the water. And I think the government has got it wrong, very, very wrong here, and we need to be jumping up and down about this issue. And this is the connection with council. We need to be jumping up about that issue, because it should be the polluter should be held liable, because what had happened, there was a farm next door and bacteria got into the the aquifer, and then went out through the aquifer. Well, it wasn't the aquifer and the owner of the aquifer that created bacteria that got into the waterways in the first instance. It came from another source. So why then should the owner of that aquifer be held liable when it seeped in through another source? The issue for me, and I'm going to make it, and you know, at a local government and a central government level, is that the polluter or the person who made the decision to do whatever, however that toxin, that pollution or that bacteria got into that aquifer, should be held liable and not the community. It's a big issue. And whānau, the community, the churches, the schools are not aware of that.
Yeah.
So what's your thought on that?
Well, yeah.
It's a big issue for me.
It is something that needs to be looked at, but the biggest problem cities like Hamilton have is, as we're putting in infrastructure, we're putting the existing system under strain.
Yeah.
And that's going to cause problems, because you will get burst pipes, say for instance wastewater pipes bursting and then leaching content into freshwater pipes.
That's
because
right.
We've still got a lot of ceramic pipes under the ground in Hamilton.
So what we're doing is we're thinking ahead, and we haven't even resolved the problem that we're dealing with, where we're at crisis point now, and we're thinking ahead to even add more pressure on an issue that's already in crisis. So I think that from purely the Three Waters reform perspective, is that we need to maybe look at the rural-urban boundary rather than looking at building across. Because if you build across, you have to put new pipes in. If you build up, you're going into existing pipes. And so what we haven't had a discussion about is the rural-urban boundary.
Yeah, and Hamilton is pretty much right on the edge of our boundary at the moment. We pretty much got to our current developments that have been done, as far as I know, have pretty much hit the edge of Hamilton's. But what do
councils do? Then they invest again, and what they do, and how they don't even actually have to invest. They just need to change their resource consenting processes. So to expand the rural boundary really just is legislation. That's how you deal with it. So I don't have an issue with the rural-urban boundary. I do have an issue. You know, people are saying build up, but you're absolutely right. Building up is going to put more pressure on the infrastructure that we already have, knowing now that we have the Three Water reforms because of pressure on the infrastructure now, that the only common sense is to build out rather than build up until we sort that out. And it's going to take 30 years, apparently.
We need a balance, but we need to keep in mind the cost versus the effect. And yes, we need a balance between spreading out and going up, but we also got to keep in mind that you cannot go up unless you sorted the infrastructure in the ground.
And we are in a crisis.
Yeah.
So common sense says
we can't just slap up more apartment buildings.
No, and we've actually seen in the last few months, if you drive around Hamilton, Kirikiriroa, you're seeing all these new apartments getting built, and it's like
a hell of a lot in town.
That's huge.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Like,
I think of that. I do think of the infrastructure, and we can't be screaming that our infrastructure is in a crisis and then still carry on doing the same thing. Whether they say, what is the definition of stupid?
Doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Exactly, exactly. So, we don't want to be classed as a council that is classified as being stupid when government's saying that our infrastructure is in a crisis. And maybe they have had to nationalise it because the rates that were supposed to go in to take care of that infrastructure wasn't actually used for that purpose. But, I can talk about these issues forever and a day. I'm sure we've been on here for a long time. People have probably switched off.
We should really probably call it quits at the moment.
The sun's going down, that's a hint.
But thanks very much for your time.
That's been awesome, Lance.
Good luck with the election.
Thank you.
It's going to be an interesting one.
It is.
But